Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfiltered and Unapologetic, the space where we talk honestly about healing, growth, faith, and the parts of life that don't always fit into perfect narratives without leaving our culture outside of the conversation. I'm your host, Caitlin Gil-Soto, born and raised in Lawrence, Massachusetts, raised between Bani and El Cibao, and proudly Dominicana. Today, I want to talk about something many people quietly carry: the pressure you to have your life figured out by a certain age. Your 20s can feel like a decade where everything is supposed to come together: your career, your stability, your purpose, your direction. And for most of my 20s, I thought I already knew my path. For years, I believed I was going to be a doctor. That was the plan I carried with me through a big part of that decade. But then I turned 30. Something shifted. Not overnight, not dramatically, but the way I looked at life began to change. And I started realizing something important. The timeline I thought I had to follow wasn't really mine. And I know I'm not the only person who has felt that, because a lot of people walk around feeling like they're somehow behind in life, like they should already have everything figured out. But the truth is, life doesn't unfold in perfect timelines. Your 20s can often feel like a race against time. It's the decade where people expect you to start becoming someone, choosing a career, building stability, figuring out your direction. And when you're in that stage of life, every decision can feel very heavy. Like making the wrong choice could somehow put you behind. But the truth is that your 20s are rarely a time when everything is clear. More often, they're a time of experimentation, trying different things, changing your mind, learning through experience. The version of you at 22 is still discovering who you are. So it's completely normal for the path you imagined at the beginning to change over time. The problem is that society often treats your 20s like a deadline, as if by a certain age you should already have your whole life figured out. But real life almost never works that way. I have the first journal prompt here for you guys. Where in my life do I feel pressured to be further ahead than I am right now? And if I remove that pressure, what would my pace of growth actually look like? And the affirmation for this question is: my life does not need to follow anyone else's timeline. I trust that my path is unfolding exactly when it needs to. Another reason this pressure feels so heavy is because it's not only coming from society. Sometimes it comes from our families. In many Dominican families, and honestly, in many families in general, there is often an unspoken timeline for life. By a certain age, you should already have things figured out: a stable career, a clear direction, maybe even a family of your own. These expectations don't usually come from a bad place. Most of the time, they come from love. From parents who struggled and want their children to have stability earlier than they did. From families who sacrificed a lot and want to see progress. But sometimes these expectations can make it feel like life has a deadline. Like if you haven't reached certain milestones by a certain age, something must be wrong. The truth is that every generation lives in a different reality. The world your parents grew up in is not the same world we are navigating now. Careers look different, opportunities look different, and the paths people take through life are often much less linear than they used to be. I have another prompt here for you guys. Where in my life do I feel pressure from cultural or family expectations about where I should be by now? And the affirmation for this question is I can respect my family and my culture while still building a life that unfolds at my own pace. One of the biggest lessons people begin to learn as they get older is that life is rarely linear. Very few people follow the exact path they imagined in their early 20s. Careers change, interests evolve, priorities shift. The person you are at 22 is still discovering the world. The person you are at 30 has lived more experiences. And the person you become later will continue growing and changing. That's not failure. That's life. Sometimes we treat change as if it means we made the wrong decision earlier. But often it simply means we grew into someone new. The truth is that growth will naturally change your direction. And that doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're evolving. I have another prompt here for you guys. What changes in my life might actually be signs of growth rather than signs that I am off track? And the affirmation for this question is my path is allowed to change as I grow. One of the most difficult parts about timeline pressure is that it doesn't always show up as obvious stress. Sometimes it shows up quietly. It shows up as comparison. You see someone your age buying a house, someone starting a family, someone else launching a successful career, and suddenly a quiet question appears in your mind. Am I behind? That question can sit in the background of your life for years. It shows up when you scroll through social media. It shows up during family conversations. It shows up during birthdays, when people start reflecting on age. And over time, that question can slowly turn into anxiety. Not because you're actually failing, but because you start measuring your life against timelines that were never designed for you. The truth is that every life unfolds under different circumstances, different opportunities, different responsibilities, different seasons of growth. Some people have to spend years healing. Some people spend years supporting family. Some people spend years figuring out who they really are. None of those years are wasted. They are a part of the path. I have a prompt here for you guys. Where in my life do I compare my timeline to other people's progress? And the affirmation for this question is I release the need to measure my life against someone else's journey. My path is unfolding in its own time. Something interesting begins to happen when you stop rushing your life. Your decisions start becoming clearer, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because the pressure begins to lift. When we believe we are running out of time, we tend to make decisions from urgency because we choose things that we feel like we should. We chase milestones because we feel like we are falling behind. We commit to paths that don't really feel aligned with who we are. When you stop treating life like a race, something shifts. You begin asking different questions. Instead of asking, what should I have accomplished by now? You start asking, what actually matters to me now? What kind of life do I want to build? What pace of life feels healthy for me? Those questions lead to decisions that feel more grounded because direction often becomes clearer when urgency disappears. When you give yourself permission to move at your own pace, you start building a life that actually fits you, not one that simply looks good from the outside. I have a journal prompt here for you guys. Where in my life could slowing down bring me more clarity? And the affirmation for this question is, I release the pressure to rush my life. Clarity comes when I allow my path to unfold naturally. If there is one thing that life continues to teach me, it's this. There is no perfect timeline. Some people discover their direction early, others take longer. Some people build a life step by step, others rebuild their lives several times. And none of these paths mean someone is ahead or behind. They simply mean that life unfolds differently for everyone. Your 20s might be a time of exploration. Your 30s might be a time of clarity. Your 40s might be a time of reinvention. Every stage of life carries its own kind of wisdom. So if you've ever felt like you should already have everything figured out, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not late. Your life is still unfolding. Now let's do our prayer. Put your hand on your chest and take a deep breath. Dear God, thank you for reminding us that life does not have to unfold on anyone else's timeline. Help us release the pressure to compare our lives with others. Help us trust that the path we are walking is still developing, still growing, and still leading us exactly where we need to be. Give us patience for the seasons that feel uncertain. Give us clarity when we feel lost. And give us the courage to continue building lives that reflect who we truly are. May we learn to move with trust instead of urgency. And may we remember that our lives are still unfolding in ways we may not fully understand yet. Amen. If this episode resonated with you, here are ways you can support the show. Leave a rating or a review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or wherever you listen. I read them and they truly mean a lot. It also helps the podcast reach more people. You can also support the podcast monthly through Buzzsprout. Your support helps cover production and keeps the show going. And if you enjoy journaling, you can find my blank journals on Amazon, designed for reflection, healing, and intention. Thank you so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of this community. And remember, your life doesn't need to follow anyone else's timeline. I'll see you in the next episode.